Hi, and welcome to today's Jewish Policy Center podcast. I am Shoshana Bryen, Senior Director of the JPC, and your host. In a departure from our usual practice, this program was recorded earlier in the week, so no audience questions today. It was our best opportunity to bring you a guest with a slightly different twist. Most of our programs since October 7th have focused not on the battlefield, but on the issues around the battlefield and around the region: Iran, Syria, China, Russia, and more. But as things change in Israel, we're changing a bit as well. Last week, we brought you Professor Colonel Gabi Siboni for a look at the requirements of the IDF entering Rafah for Israel to accomplish its primary military aims: the destruction of Hamas as a military and a governing force, and the release of 134 hostages held by Hamas in violation of international law. Today, we're bringing you an expert in military technology and strategy, Arie Egozi. No, we are not going to make military experts out of you, but it does help to understand what Israel is doing and what the IDF has been learning. Before we go to Arie, one thing that hasn't changed: a little bit of a JPC commercial. The Jewish Policy Center was established in 1985. Our primary function is to support a strong American defense capability, U.S.-Israel security cooperation, and missile defense. Most important, today and every day, we support the legitimacy and security of Israel against anybody who would deny them. And now, more than ever, we support the efforts of the government of Israel and the IDF to defend the people of Israel and bring the perpetrators of the massacres and hostage-taking to justice. Today our guest is Arie Egozi, Editor-in-Chief of Israel Homeland Security website. You can find that at I-HLS.com. He reports on weapons, strategy and tactics in the Middle East and Gulf region, as well as security cooperation among the various countries. Arie was born in Israel, served in the IDF, and is a graduate of Tel Aviv University. He's worked as an aerospace and defense correspondent for Israel's largest newspaper, Yediot Ahronot, and defense publications, including Flight International, Aviation Week, Shepherd Media, and Breaking Defense. He is widely heard in Israel, in the media, and abroad as well. Last year, as part of Israel's 75th birthday celebration, the Israel Air Force asked him to prepare a podcast that would try to foresee what the Air Force would look like and how it would function over the next 75 years. It was not an easy mission. Today, his mission is to talk to us about tactics and weaponry in Gaza and against Hezbollah in Lebanon, and what the IDF has learned in the past 6 months. Arie, the floor is yours.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
The floor is mine. I understand I have to explain a few things that most of them I personally still don't understand. So that's a very tough job. But I will try. I've been in defense for many years, and I know the situation in Israel and in the area. But what happened on October 7th is beyond any I cannot find even the word. All the red lights were on, and in the eyes of the Israeli intelligence. And in spite of that, Israel was surprised in the morning of October 7th. When I saw the first videos from the south, from Sderot, Nukba people shooting in the streets of Sderot, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was something that, but it happened. And they killed a lot of people. And the Israeli army responded very late. Since then, for 5.5 months, the war is being fought in Gaza and in Lebanon. And now the IDF is fighting very bravely. The IDF has lost so far 600 soldiers on both fronts. The question is, what happened will be, of course, investigated by ministerial investigation committee that will be formed after the war, when the war ends. But at this point, there are some lessons that the IDF has slammed as the war continues, and I want to talk about that. One lesson is that UAVs, unmanned aerial systems, are playing a major role in every war now. The Russians are using Iranian-made UAVs in their war in Ukraine, and they really kill a lot of Ukrainians. Iranians have sent their UAVs to Lebanon, to Hezbollah, and less to the Hamas in Gaza. All the Israeli systems that were developed in recent years to deal with this threat are not effective as they were expected to be. And only yesterday, the Israeli Navy base in Eilat was hit by a armed UAV. And this morning, another UAV coming from the direction of Iraq fell not far from the Israeli new international airport, Ramon, near Eilat. So this type of weapon is getting more attention by Israel, and many of the companies, the defense companies now, are trying to find a solution, even during the war. Another lesson. Many experts thought that the tank, the main battle tank, is part of history, and that proved to be wrong, very wrong. And Israel, in recent years, decreased the number of operational tanks for the IDF, and after the war started, the IDF ran to the junkyards and took out many old tanks and prepared them for fighting. The lesson: Israel will have now to make more MBTs because it proved to be a very effective tool in an urban warfare like the IDF is fighting in Gaza. Another thing that changed, the Israeli Air Force until the war was under the impression that advanced armed UAVs, Israel has been using armed UAVs for the last 20 years. But the Israeli sensors, until 8 months ago, did not let us to publicize it. Despite of the fact that the Hamas in Gaza had videos showing the UAVs shooting missiles. So the Israeli Air Force was under the impression that UAVs can be a substitute to combat helicopters. And that again proved wrong. And now Israel is asking the US for an urgent supply of 40 new Apache helicopters, Boeing made I-HLS, the new model. So this will change a lot of things that were looked at as the Bible of the army, that rock solid, and things change as the fighting continues. Another lesson that the IDF learned is that Iron Dome, the system that protects Israel from missiles, cannot be left alone, because the numbers of rockets launched in the beginning of the war, and some of them were intercepted over my house here, and I can hear the distinct boom of an interception. And when we sat in we have a safe room in our house, every house in Israel, most of the houses, concrete made with steel door. I could hear the interception, and that was a very relieving sound. But with the numbers of rockets that the Hamas, and we are not talking not yet about the Hezbollah, that has around 150,000 rockets, some of them very accurate, received from Iran. the Iron Dome cannot deal with such a big threat, and you need another system. So Israel is working on what is called the Iron Beam, a laser weapon that will be able to intercept rockets. A prototype is being tested now near Gaza. The problem is to get a stronger beam, something like 100, 150 kilowatts that is needed to burn a rocket in the air, to fry it, as they say. So many programs will be now accelerated because the threat is here. It's not something theoretical. The threat is here. In some of the cases, the Hamas launched 30 to 40 rockets, Salvos. In Lebanon now, the Hezbollah launched in one day 60 rockets in one salvo. That's a lot. That's a lot. And another thing, there's a problem with the price. You launch a Tamir interceptor, which is part of the Iron Dome. The unofficial price is $50,000 US, and you use it against a rocket that costs $500. So it's also an economic problem. So you need the Iron Beam, which costs $4 a beam, a shot. So Israel will have to, and is now accelerating this program. So these things are changing all the time. And this is, as I said, before the Hezbollah joined the war in a full-scale war, because now they are launching rockets to the northern part of Israel. Many people are in hotels for the last 5.5 months. They had to evacuate their houses, and in some of the kibbutzim and satellites, there are no people. There are no people there, and people watch TV and say, "Hey, this is my house. It has now been ruined by a rocket." It's amazing. They use anti-tank rockets and systematically hit buildings, houses near the border. My mother was born in Tula, a place that was really damaged now by those missiles. I think that something like 70% of the houses were damaged by rockets. It's people. I have friends who live in a hotel for the last 5.5 months. It's very nice to go to a hotel for a weekend, not to stay for 5.5 months, especially if you have small children and things like that. This is, and we don't see the end, because until now the clashes with the Hezbollah is a low volume, a low profile one. If they start a full-scale war, I don't think I would be able to sit down and talk with you, because I think we will have to spend many hours a day in our safe room, because they have a huge number, as I said, 150, at least 150,000 missiles, some of them long range, very precise. So the war, we don't see the end for the war, because first of all, we have those hostages in Gaza. We don't know how many of them are still alive, but Israel is negotiating, and the Mossad and Shabak and military are going back and forth to Qatar and trying to formulate a deal with Hamas. And first of all, until they are not back home, we cannot end this war. And even after that, Israel cannot afford to let the Hamas rebuild its capabilities in Gaza. This should end forever, because otherwise people from the kibbutzim along the border with Gaza will not go back to their houses, to their home. No way. I'm sure you saw pictures, videos of the damage that was caused by on October 7th. It's when I saw this, and I visited there, and I watched the 47 minutes video that the IDF prepared. I must tell you, the Nazis, kindergarten stuff, if you compare it to what those Hamas people did in this morning, the atrocities they did is, there are no words to I don't want to even to talk about it with you, because you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. It's really something that as a human being cannot understand these things. It's things that we didn't see even in the concentration camp in Europe. It's unbelievable. So the war should end when Gaza is demilitarized, with no missiles, with no rockets, and this will take time. This will take time because the IDF is not, as you know, that has not yet entered Rafah, because there's a problem there. Many people from northern part of Gaza, refugees, went to Rafah, and in a small place, there's something like 1.5 million people, very concentrated. So the army cannot operate, because things will happen like happened today with those people from the food team, and things will be stuck now.
Yep. Let me just add something here. You mentioned the kitchen. For the viewers who don't know what happened, a car belonging to the World Central Kitchen, which was delivering aid in northern Israel, northern Gaza, was struck, and a number of people were killed in that car. So you just need to know that was a thing that happened today. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Arie, but people need to know what it was.
And such things will happen in Rafah, because 1.5 million people in a very, very small area. So the army will not be able to shoot rockets. It will be impossible to fight without hitting the uninvolved. So it's a big problem now. And the Americans are pushing hard, because you have elections in November, and there are, of course, the interests of the president and other politicians, but I think that Israel will not stop the war without achieving the target, Gaza, without Hamas, without operational intelligence of Hamas. That will not happen again, because otherwise people will not go back to those places in southern Israel. I visited there. Have you been to Israel?
Yes.
These places, most of them, were paradise. The people see and think really beautiful places, gardens, trees, and now they're ruined, burned. People cannot go there. I talked with some of the people that live there. They said, if we not have total confidence that the Hamas will not be able to shoot rockets or to again get to our houses, to our homes, we will not go back. So Israel has a big problem now, and I think the Israeli government must make some decisions. But as you know, the Israeli government is not one piece. We have a few governments in the same government. Each of them pushing to a different side, and but things will have to be finalized, and we'll have to say the world, especially to the U.S., my friends, we cannot go back. We understand your wishes, your limitations, but we cannot go back to the situation of October 2nd in the morning. And that's it. And again, when I read the report about Iran very, very close to a nuclear device, when I hear the reports about what I mentioned before, Iran sending missiles and UAVs to its structures around the world, not only in the area. The world has to wake up. The world has to wake up. America, Europeans, and other countries, because the Iranians have master plan. They want to get their hands on huge part of the world, and they do it. Israel alone cannot deal with this monster. Even if you look at the Houthis in Yemen, one of the Iranian proxies, who launched rockets and caused the commercial ship lines in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal to be cancelled, and they hit ships every day. The Americans did something, but that's a joke. America, the Fifth Fleet of America that is in the area, can finish the Houthis in 2 days. But they have to get the order. They now intercept rockets and missiles, and I don't have any confirmation about what I read before we started this interview, but I heard from some of the forces that the U.S. Liberty Navy ship was hit by Iranian rockets near Bahrain. So the Americans have to understand, finally, that Iran is a threat to the world, not only to Israel, not only to Europe, and Europe woke up because of Ukraine. I don't know if you know, but Germany, 3 months ago, signed a big contract with Israel to buy the Arrow 3. This is a system that can intercept ballistic missiles. All of a sudden, Germany understood that Putin can have bigger plans, not only for Ukraine, but to Germany. So Germany is buying the Israeli defense system. But it's not enough. Europe should understand that the Iranians are very systematic, and they have proxies all over the world, and it doesn't happen so far. So Israel in the area is still alone. But I'm sure that something will change.
I hope so. Let's go back and start at the tactical level and move back up to the strategic level. I know that you mentioned there will be a commission, and I know that commissions in Israel that look at these things are very serious. But would you say on October 7th or October 8th or 9th, was the IDF surprised by the level of Hamas sophistication, specifically including computer servers and databases? And also, were they surprised by the level of sophistication of the tunnels? Or were they watching all that stuff and didn't do anything about it?
I answer. You know, many Gazans worked in Israel, in the kibbutzim. So when they this morning, on October 7th, when they came into the kibbutzim and settlements, they knew that Arie is living here, Shoshana is living here, and Shoshana living there. They didn't have even to use a map. That's one thing. They worked in this kibbutzim, and some of them got help, medical help for their children from the people they killed on October 7th. Sophistication, yes, they prepared this attack in a very sophisticated way. And I tell you a story that the censorship did not let us talk about it until a few weeks ago. Some months before October, 24 pickups, Toyota pickups, arrived at the Ashdod airport in southern Israel by a ship from Europe. And the people that checked those cars found on the cargo platform the ring, a welded ring with holes. They said, what is this? So the man from Gaza said, this is for another spare tire. Okay. And the drivers came to Ashdod. they drove the Toyotas to Gaza. On October 7th, this thing was ordered by the Hamas in Europe. The IDF found the machine guns hooked to this ring with holes. So they prepared of every small detail for this attack, every small detail. And as I say, all the signs were there. The young soldiers that saw the preparations warned the officers, the commanding officers, hey, something is happening there. You don't know. Some of them even told one of the girls that was publicized, you have to use your eyes, not your brain. She said something is boiling, something will happen soon, and he shut them out. This, of course, will have to be investigated after the war. There are many things. The Israeli intelligence, it's very hard for me to say, failed all the way. I was asked by one of the editors I worked for in the US, told me, I expected this story. He told me, hey, Arie, you are reporting for us for many years that you have a satellite that can see the mouse in the tunnel. So what happened? I said, we have the best technology, but we have stupid people. It was very hard for me as an Israeli to say, but that's the truth. Because all the red lights were there. These Nukba people from the Hamas, they trained along the fence in broad daylight with those pickups. Everything was there. You had to just look at the border, but there was a misconception. That's the problem. Israel thought that as long as the Hamas gets money from Qatar via Israel, they will stay cool. And that was a big mistake. The information was there, but the interpretation of this raw intelligence was completely wrong. This is one of the main things that will be investigated after the war ends.
So it seems to me this is a lesson for the United States as well, because we seem to think, or at least the current administration seems to think, that as long as we allow Iran to have money and allow Iran to be part of the international community, they also will behave themselves. So it seems to me that one could say Israel paid a terrible price for thinking that your enemies could be bought off with jobs and work permits and money from Qatar. But we're doing the same thing, I'm afraid, in much larger spaces. We need to learn from you.
I think, as I said before many times, the Americans do not understand the picture. They think that Iran has a major plan. The people in Tehran want to get Iran to have the Iranian influence on major parts of the world. The Chinese do it, but they do it via commercial things, economical things. They build programs in Israel. They build programs in South America. They're not using force. They want to get influence in major part of the world, but through investments, money. Iranians send rockets and armed UAVs to many proxies, and I said, even to Venezuela now. Venezuela is a neighbor, very neighboring country to the US. It's not in the Middle East. So, as you said, I agree. Washington doesn't understand what's happening before our eyes. And I think that what happened in October 7th is a lesson also to the US. They have to recalculate all the estimates, all the concepts, because as the Israeli concept collapsed, the American concept will also collapse one day.
Okay, I was going to start at the tactical level and move up, but we're already at the strategic level. So let's stay there for a minute. Admiral Hagari said a couple of days ago that he cannot recall such extensive cooperation as we currently have with the U.S. Central Command, encompassing the entire military and intelligence services. Such great collaboration has not existed previously. Talk to us, if you would, about U.S.-Israel security cooperation. Is the U.S. military willing to learn these lessons? Does it want Israel's help, both technologically and in terms of creating strategy? How are you guys doing?
The cooperation between Israel and CENTCOM started 2 years ago. It started first to deal with the repeated attacks of the Houthis by armed UAV on Saudi oil refineries. You know, in 2019, there was a big attack that hit oil installations in Saudi Arabia. And the American Patriot missiles that are deployed in Saudi Arabia were not able to intercept those UAVs. So a cooperation started with CENTCOM. Their commanders visited Israel. Israeli commanders visited. They are based in Bahrain. I think in Bahrain they have headquarters in Bahrain. But that's not enough. That's not enough. The Fifth Fleet is part of the U.S. Navy. U.S. Navy is under the command of the White House. They don't get the right orders. And as I said before, the Fifth Fleet can finish the Houthis in Yemen in 2 days, but they play a game. They shoot down a UAV, they hit a rocket. We don't understand the heart of the problem. You have to be an Iranian to understand the Iranians. Their state of mind is different from the Israeli one, and of course for the American one. So again, I'm using the word naivety. They're very naive, and I think this is a very good opportunity for us to say, hey, look again at the problem. It's a huge problem for you, not for Israel, not only for Israel, not only for Europe. And as you said, something has to change.
Okay, but let's assume for the moment the downside of this conversation, and it doesn't change. And the U.S. has pressure on Israel, and the Europeans have some pressure on Israel. One of the things it seems to me is that Israel risks, with Germany and the United States, losing some of the weapon systems that you need to purchase. Can Israel enlarge its domestic arms production capacity to do the job it needs to do under bad circumstances?
What do you mean? Can Israel produce the weapon systems?
Can you increase your domestic production? You're not the United States. You're never going to be the United States. But can you take care of your major needs if we cut you off?
You know, the U.S. has in Israel an emergency stockpile of weapons, one of the bases in southern Israel. This stockpile was aimed for use by Israel, of course, by an American green light. And Israel relied on this stockpile of bombs and rockets that is stored in one of the Israeli Air Force bases in southern Israel. But someone in Israel forgot that this stockpile was almost empty because everything was sent to Ukraine.
Right.
Yes, it was sent to Ukraine. So the IDF found itself without weapons, without enough, because all the wars in Israel in the past, 6-day war, Yom Kippur war, a week, 10 days, we are now 5.5 months into this war. So Israel found itself in a big shortage of ammunition and weapon systems. And for the last 5 months, American Air Force transport aircraft are landing in Nevatim Air Force in southern Israel and download ammunition and things like that that should have been produced in Israel. But when I talk with the managers, the presidents of Israeli big defense companies say, hey, the Ministry of Defense did not order anything. They ordered a few things. This would change. The production line, the assembly lines of the Israeli big defense companies are working now 24/7. Not only people were called from pension, people brought their sons and daughters and wives, and they all work around the clock. But after the war ends, Israel will have to manufacture more, a lot more. Of course, that the main systems will still come from the US. F-35, F-15s, things like that. Israel has an order for 50 F-35, and now the new order will be signed shortly for another 25. More F-15s, the new version of the F-15. So these will come from the US. The US, is supporting Israel by FMF money. That's $38 billion for 10 years. 10 years. We hope that the situation now will not affect the next program, which should begin in 2028. Israel hopes that because we don't make fighter aircraft. Israel in the past tried to make the fighter aircraft, the Lavi, and the Americans.
The Americans didn't want you to build it because they said it would be too expensive for you. They killed it.
Killed it, yes, because they saw that it's maybe a competition to do their F-16. But that's another story. So Israel, to your question, Israel will have to make more weapon systems and still rely on the US for aircraft and for other things. Yes.
Okay, so going back to the war and to the tactics of the war, you talked about the Israelis who were displaced in the north as well as the south, and I have to tell you that here in the United States there is almost no coverage of what's happening to Israel in the north. The Hezbollah rockets are completely ignored. The destruction that you talked about is never seen here. It's just doesn't exist. But what that reminds us as we're looking is that you're already in a two-front war. Are you going to have to turn your attention to Hezbollah in a bigger way? I mean, it seems to me that you can't continue just to have them choose the time and place of rocket fire.
At this time, the war in the north is, as we call it, on low fire. Still, some 60,000 people from the north are living in hotels now because every day the Hezbollah is launching rockets and hitting bases, Israeli Air Force bases, and settlements in kibbutzim, and they're all deserted. And if a full-scale war starts with Hezbollah, as I said before, Israel will be in a big problem because, as I said, they have at least 150,000 rockets, some of them very accurate. Israel, in the last few years, has been hitting again and again convoys of weapons going from Iran via Syria to Lebanon, but some of them went through. So the Israeli intelligence know that Hezbollah has a big stockpile of rockets, some of them with very big warheads, something like 400-kilogram warhead that can ruin 10 buildings at one time. So we hope that this will not develop for a full-scale war in the north, but the people in the northern part of Israel will not go back to their houses, to their homes, until this thing is solved. Because in Manara, the kibbutz, they showed a woman showed from her bedroom window, showed the Hezbollah over the fence, 200 meters. Would you go to sleep in your bedroom? When, of course not. So this will have, the Hezbollah will have to go back according to 1701, decision of the UN. I give the UN. Never mind. I don't want to use harsh words. UN is a joke.
I think it was Shimon Peres who said shmoom, and
No, it was Ben Gurion.
it was Ben Gurion. Okay, even better.
He was very shmoom. It's bullshit. Decision 1701. Okay, there is a decision. So what? So what?
So
Hezbollah will understand, like the Hamas, only force, and Nasrallah knows that what happened in the Dahya in the Second Lebanon War.
So one way, though, that Israel has been trying to manage this,
but we'll have to spend many hours a day in our shelters, and the country will suffer economically. Yeah. What else do you want to know?
What I want to know. I want to know so many things. We could be here until tomorrow, but we won't. One of the ways that Israel manages at least some of this problem is by taking out Iranian assets on their way to Hezbollah in Syria and taking out Iranian assets in Syria, as you did Sunday. All of that used to be done in a deconfliction agreement with Russia. Does Israel and Russia still have a deconfliction operation that works? And start there.
Until the Ukraine war started, there was a red line between the headquarters of the IDF in Tel Aviv to Moscow. And when the Israeli Air Force went, took off to hit Iranian targets in Syria, the Russians would get a 5 minutes warning. This thing doesn't work since the war with Ukraine started. And the Iranian, I think you brought this up. I think that the Israeli decision not to send defensive systems to Ukraine is a big mistake because Russia became a good friend of Iran, and I think Israel should have sent Iron Dome and other things to Ukraine. We cannot trust the Russians. And, I think that Israel should have behaved differently toward Ukraine. I think that it's not late to change this policy. I wrote about it many times, and many people support my idea about this, but the government still thinks that Israel cannot afford to go openly against Russia. So Israel has been attacking targets only yesterday.
That's right.
Israel killed a very senior Iranian general in Damascus with a missile. So Israel is working against Iranian in the area, and all this, as I said, as the war in the north is still on low fire. If it goes up to a full-scale war, this will be another opera, as we say. It will be a totally different picture.
Let me take you back to Gaza one more time, and then we can find a way to wrap this up on a positive note. Think positive for a second. One of the things that's clear is that in parts of northern Gaza that the IDF cleared, Hamas is back. They're stealing the food, and they went back to the Al-Shifa hospital. So I have two questions. Did the IDF anticipate that, first of all? And secondly, there are people who said not only did Israel anticipate it, but they assumed Hamas would go back to the hospital and therefore allow them to go back in order to do what they did, which is capture a lot and kill a lot. How do you deal with the problem of Hamas return?
I think that letting the people, or some of them, many of them, innocent people who won't go back to their houses. But the experience that the IDF has, among these people, the Hamas will come back. And to let the Hamas come back to northern Gaza is losing the war. So why did we lose 600 soldiers? Because if the Hamas comes back to northern, see what happened in the Shifa hospital. The IDF went out and they had to go back a week ago and found rockets, missiles, Hamas people in operations room, in beds of patients. So Israel cannot let the Hamas go back unless there is a checkpoint, and each of one of them will be checked to see that he is not a Hamas member. And of course, there is a pressure from the world, from Washington, from European country, and I think that Israel, on this point, will not accept any compromise, because letting the Hamas going back to the northern part of Gaza is to lose the war.
So as you say, there are Palestinian civilians and they want to go home and everybody has to feel for them. Do you find that the Palestinian civilians are willing to work with you to keep Hamas out, knowing what Hamas does to them?
I'm sure that if you do a poll now, even before the war, about the civilians in Gaza, they will say, 90% of them will say, kill the Hamas. But they are afraid because when they open their mouth, they kill them. They kill them. They shoot them in the streets. So people cannot, it's not a democratic country like Israel that I can see what I want. People in Gaza, most of them want to live quietly, to earn money, to feed them. In my house here, some years ago, take care of gardens, walked in, and there was a gentleman with him from Gaza, very, very wise and intelligent man, and we sent toys for his children that we have from our grandchildren. But most of the people there really want to live quietly and to survive. But the Hamas has other plans. Other plans. That's it. That's very simple. Very simple.
Okay, so that leads us, maybe there's our optimistic ending, because I've been doing this program for 4 years now, and I like to end on a positive note. I don't want people to go off and be sad and be upset about things, but this is a very depressing time for those of us who love Israel. So, is there a positive thing you can say to our listeners and our viewers about where Israel is going and how you see the end of this for Israel and the Jewish people?
I think that what happened on October 7th, the lesson will be learned. No question about it. This will not happen again. It happened 50 years ago in the Yom Kippur War. Israel had all the red lights. You know that from history, and it failed. It will not happen again. I'm sure that the IDF will learn all the lessons and correct all the mistakes. A positive note: only if America will understand that Israel is fighting for its survival. It's not just it's against Iran. Hamas and Hezbollah are actually Iran. Iran, as I said, is so close to a nuclear bomb. Iran sees the world as, yes, a positive note if the world, and I mean especially the US and Europe, will change their state of mind and understand that the problem is a bigger problem. It's not the problem of Israel, it's a problem of the world. Yes. Is that positive enough?
Yes, I'll take it, and I will thank you. This has been very enlightening. I know that people will enjoy it. They won't enjoy it. They will learn a lot when they listen to you, and I really appreciate your time. Arie Egozi, thank you very much.
Thank you.